That night did not seem special to anyone in the room. The stage lights glowed without drama. Wooden chairs creaked as the audience settled in, and the air buzzed with casual conversation. No one realized that this ordinary evening would one day be recorded in music history as the beginning of a legend, or just as easily as the night a dream nearly collapsed before it had the chance to grow. Behind the stage curtain, a young man stood frozen, his heart pounding too fast, his palms damp with sweat, his mind overflowing with questions that refused to quiet. This was his debut. This was the moment he had imagined for years, yet now it felt like the greatest threat he had ever faced. He was nobody, not a star, not even a familiar name. He was just a young man with a different kind of voice, a modest appearance, and a dream that felt far too large for his fragile confidence. In his head echoed the sound of doubt, not only from others, but from himself. What if he failed? What if the audience laughed? What if this night proved that every hope he had carried for so long was nothing more than a foolish illusion? Every step toward the stage felt heavy, as if the floor itself was pulling him back, as if the world was offering him one final chance to turn away. When his name was announced, the applause was hesitant. Not cheers, not excitement, just polite, distant clapping. He stepped into the spotlight wearing a forced smile, trying to hide the fear that was threatening to paralyze him. From the stage, he saw unfamiliar faces, some curious, some indifferent, and some openly doubtful. There was no warmth in the room, no promise that the night would go well, only a heavy silence waiting patiently for his first mistake. The first note left his lips with a slight tremble. He felt it immediately. His hands shook, his legs felt weak beneath him. In those opening seconds, the dream he had carried since childhood felt painfully fragile, as if it could shatter at any moment. This was not just singing. This was a gamble with his entire future. Every missed note, every misplaced pause could be the end of everything before it ever truly began. Halfway through the song, his mind briefly went blank. For a moment, he forgot where he was. The lights felt too bright. The room felt far too large. He heard faint murmurs from the audience, or perhaps they were only echoes of his own fear. For a split second, he nearly gave up, nearly stopped, nearly allowed this night to become the failure he would carry for the rest of his life. But it was precisely at that lowest point that something changed. He closed his eyes and took a breath. In that brief silence, he remembered why he was standing on that stage at all. The years of limitation, the long nights listening to music while holding on to a dream that seemed impossible, the simple belief that his voice mattered, even if the world was not ready to hear it yet. When he opened his eyes again, his voice was different, not more perfect, but more honest, more fearless, more alive. The audience began to feel it. Not technical brilliance, not a flawless performance, but raw emotion flowing without restraint. Every lyric felt personal. Every note carried a story. The tension in the room slowly softened. Faces that had once been cold began to pay attention. Eyes followed his movements. He had not won them over completely, but he was no longer losing them either. Still, the struggle was far from over. Song after song carried the same weight. There were moments when his voice nearly cracked, moments when he almost lost control. Small mistakes happened, and his heart raced again. In his mind, failure still waited in the shadows. This debut could still destroy his dream. The world of entertainment did not offer many second chances. He knew that, and that knowledge made every second on that stage feel decisive. Among the audience, whispers began to rise, not out of doubt, but surprise. There was something unusual unfolding before them, a young man who was not perfect, yet performed with a courage rarely seen.
He did not hide his nervousness. He did not pretend to be something he was not. And somehow that honesty created a connection. As the final song drew to a close, he realized he had survived the worst of it. He was still standing, still singing. His dream was still alive, wounded, shaken, but breathing. The last note echoed through the room. Then silence followed. The moment felt endless. He waited for the reaction, bracing himself for disappointment. His body stiffened, his breath caught in his chest. Then applause began. Soft at first, scattered, not explosive, but real. Applause that acknowledged effort, courage, and possibility. Not everyone stood, not everyone cheered, but it was enough to deliver one crucial message. This night was not a complete failure. The dream may have cracked, but it had not been destroyed. He bowed his head, not only in gratitude, but in relief. Behind the faint smile on his face, tears threatened to fall. He knew the road ahead was still long. He knew one performance would not change everything, but he also knew he had passed the first test, the test that nearly shattered his belief in himself. When the stage emptied and the lights faded, he sat alone, reflecting on what had just happened. Shame, pride, fear, and hope blended into a single, overwhelming emotion. That debut was not a great victory, nor was it a crushing defeat. It was the harshest lesson about what it truly means to dream. That dreams do not always begin with applause, but often with terrifying doubt. Years later, that night would be remembered not for its perfection, but for the courage born from uncertainty. That historic performance would be seen as the moment the young man nearly lost everything, yet chose to endure. When a dream almost collapsed, only to be forged into something stronger. And from a small stage with hesitant applause, the first step towards immortality was taken. Because every legend begins in fragility. And that debut night proved that sometimes a dream must almost be destroyed before it can truly live.